Welcome to the OC154 podcast, episode 6. In this episode, we tackle and unpack the Senzo Meyiwa trial that is currently ongoing. My two co-hosts, H and GT, are both law graduates, and we had also invited our fourth friend, who's also a law graduate and has been paying close attention to this case, to come join us in trying to make sense of this messy trial. This is by no means an attempt to reveal some hidden mysteries of this case or to resolve it, but we simply try to make sense of the information that is already in the public domain. Furthermore, this podcast should be treated separately from my and my co-hosts' professional careers, as it is simply a casual conversation amongst ourselves as ordinary members of the public. Even though my co-hosts' insights are incredibly useful and interesting in making sense of this case, they should never be treated as legal or professional opinion or advice under any circumstances. Before we go on any further, please remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel. And also remember that you can find the full episodes of this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, and all your favorite podcast platforms. Just search for OC space 154 podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter. Just search for OC space 154 podcast. Your feedback will be highly appreciated on how you think we can improve our podcast and what other topics would you like us to cover. Let us now jump straight into the topic of the day, the Senzo Meyiwa trial, which we kickstart by looking back at the origins of this case and the unfolding of events as they took place over the years, before we saw the resumption of this case again now in 2022. I thought this might be a useful way to remind ourselves of a broader context of where we find ourselves today in this case, and how the public conversation surrounding this case has evolved over time. Many might argue, including myself, that the change in the tide of this case in the court of public opinion is around the time when the NPA erroneously leaked the details around the controversial second docket in 2019. And this is also exactly a point where our conversation also takes a different turn. You will notice a thread throughout this episode of me asking some really basic questions that many of us are too embarrassed to ask about how the different cogs within our justice system work and interface with one another. I ask for definitions of some of the jargon that the lawyers like to use and hide behind so that they can charge us crazy fees that you will hear my co-hosts casually use as well. So I did the heavy lifting for you here. And it was not easy, as you'll hear GT's uncontrollable laughter at some of my seemingly imbecilic questions. Which brings me to a second reason I wanted us to have this conversation. The law and the justice system affect us all, yet an average South African like myself knows so little about it. And on the other hand, the concepts used by the lawyers and the legal texts to describe some of the basic principles are so lofty and very intimidating to a pedestrian like myself. So I thought this Senzo Meyiwa trial would be a good case study to learn a few of some of these concepts in a criminal case like this one, and in a digestible fashion and with immediate real-life application and examples from an actual trial. Lastly, we had a discussion about Advocate Teffo, which took a very interesting turn that I could have never predicted. Our guest co-host revealed that the man did not complete his pupillage, which is some kind of formalized training for advocates. This revelation opens up a debate which highlights the nature and the root of acquiring the status of prestige within the advocacy field, which is one way of looking at that conversation. Another way to look at it, especially if you are studying towards a law career, is that the discussion provides some career guidance on what you need to look out for if you want to practice as an advocate, especially given the new regulation that has come into effect recently that GT educated us about. We also discussed the usual suspects in this case, Khumalo, Longwe and Chicco Twala, Maggie Piri, and many other characters and subtopics. Enjoy episode 6. Because we have limited time, I think today we can get straight into it. I think can get straight into it. The Senzo Meyiwa trial, because that's what we plan to talk about. I mean, that's where. But thanks, by the way, for joining us again, Jonathan. I hear you've been on top of the case of the trial. So you know what I think I'm gonna start to do as a starting point. I thought it might be useful because honestly, in my mind, when I've been watching this case all this up to now, we kind of forgot where it all began. Like, how did you get here? Like, you know what I mean? Because that's how the news cycle works in this country, man. It's a new story. We're all caught up in it, and this is a story that's been on for like since 2014. That's like how many years? 7, 8 years now. Yeah, it's been a long time now, and we forget how we got here, and I think maybe for a bit of context it might help. So I put up some notes here to just look at the chronology of events from 2014 up to where we are now. So I'm gonna just maybe read through things, the events, just to bring everyone up to speed, because clearly I'm the only one who was busy refreshing this over the weekend. Oh yeah, and funny thing happened. So I was going through my emails randomly during the week. So I came across, back in our days, GTH, when you're sending out demos to radio stations, trying to get gigs and stuff. So coincidentally, I came across this demo that I had sent to a station. So they were going to open a new station here in Bloom.
Sure.
And at the time I was still at vet, so it was approaching holidays sort of time. So I sent out a demo to the station manager, but the station had not been opened yet.
Yeah.
So then I used to kill it, man. And the story of that weekend. So I did the demo on a Monday, and trying to sound like what's happening in the current affairs and all that. And the breaking story of that weekend in the demo itself was actually the Senzo Meyiwa trial. And it was fun. It was quite an interesting time capsule because how I spoke about the story and I look at how the story has evolved now.
George Milan ba re mo go wena a wish a le gore ga o se utlwela motho montle re tsoga ka dikgatse le botlhoko tota tse di thusang botlhoko matsatsi la gompieno tsa gore Senzo Meyiwa Senzo Meyiwa ke motshwaradino wa setlhopha sela sa Orlando Pirates le bafana bile le mokaptene wa sona setlhopha seo sa Orlando Pirates o sa tsa tlogetse lefatshe le le ka kwano ra go thentsiwa maobane me o tlogetse lefatshe le le ka kwano ka ntlha ya tsone dikgobalo tseo mo go thuntsweng go a bosenyi mo nageng ya rona bo itegetse ka tsela nngwe e tshosang man go a tshosa tota ebile re gone go utlwa ka mo la matlhatsong le ka bona le la bulaeni molauzi a tlogela lefatshe le ka kwano le ene go ra gore latlhegetswe ke borametshameko ba le babedi mo weekendeng e le nosi fela yes yo metsotso sobedi le barataro pela tsara rona ya bolesome le bongwe eno ke Cut FM 105.8 FM megahertz, my campus, my youth, my radio.
Because at the time everyone was like, it's a crime thing, and why wouldn't you believe it? I mean, this is South Africa. Someone comes out and say there was a crime, a failed robbery at my house, and we didn't have any reason to not believe the story at the time. So in my demo, I go on and on about crime in this country, and I'm just thinking how ridiculous that sounds now when I listen to that demo. And if Nota was to listen to that demo, we talk about crime in South Africa. So I'm just gonna run through quickly those events up to 2019. I'd like to say up to 2019 because I think that's when things started taking a different turn. Honestly speaking, up to 2019, everyone was on board about the crime, the failed robbery story. We all believed it. I mean, like I said, this is South Africa. Such things happen all the time. So 2014, October, Senzo Meyiwa was killed on the 26th while visiting Khumalo. 2 days later, the police released the identities of the two men believed to be behind the killing, and a reward of $250,000 million is offered for information that could lead to the arrest and the conviction of the killers. So as I go, I'll just keep stopping here and there because there are some things that were popping in my mind that I wanted to find out from you guys as the legal minds that I was curious about as I was reading through the events as they happened. And then same month, October 31st, the police arrest the Vosloorus resident, 27-year-old guy in connection with this murder. And 11 days later, it is November now, this guy, what's his name? Zamoku Shambata, he makes an appearance in the Boksburg Magistrate Court, where the charges against him were withdrawn due to lack of evidence. And that was kind of it. That's the last time we kind of heard about this guy. And okay, because okay, this guy's case was like it's not that interesting. But if you think about how the case is looking like now, people are talking about these guys, they literally just went and fetched them wherever they fetched them. That's like another version because there's so many versions to the story. One version, one of the many versions is that the guys who are currently on trial could just be random guys who happen to be criminals by sound of things ordinarily in their lives, but they sound like they don't have any link to this case. So this question becomes interesting on that point as well, to say, if this case, let's say, ends up at that place where we conclude that this guy had absolutely nothing to do with this murder, where do they stand?
Before you go for the response of that particular question, if we can just compare this to the whole parliament, the fire at the parliament that happened a few months ago, it's more or less like similar the same, because even that guy, you pass by the you see that, man, there's no way that guy, if ever he's a hobo or whatever, he can have access to parliament to even be able to make sure that complete a successful fire government, the entire part of the building. I mean, Joe, like that guy, he's not capable of doing that, so you just get pinned to do something. So I'm comparing this with the guys that are now still in trial with the whole thing, to say that it's possible that people can be pinned to be the suspects. So
and there's this whole talk
particular crime without them in actual fact. Okay, they might be the ones who completed the crime, but doing it on behalf of somebody else. It's like you're being sent to do it.
Yeah. So because there's this whole talk now in the country about, well, and it's not a crazy conversation, honestly, to say, well, only the rich gets to have justice and all that. Honestly, but if you're just that guy and they just like, you know what, you look like you might be the guy who committed the crime, and you get arrested, and let's say it gets proven that you're not guilty or anything, and the word that's used there, this guy who was arrested says he's going to sue. The suing now starts to sound like a, what do you guys usual differentiate between the criminal and the civil cases, right? So it starts to sound like it's a civil matter now, where now you need, which I believe is a bit more costly. You can't just, you don't go and lay a charge, isn't it? I don't know how it works, normally the civil one. But it sounds like you could do that, like you could get away with something like that in this country. It's like, no, this guy looks like he's a criminal. Let's give it a try and just put him on trial and inconvenience him for the next 6 months, going to the courts back and forth. And there's not much you can do really about it afterwards. Because I'm thinking about these guys right now who are on trial. If we take one of the many versions of the story to say, if we find out that they had absolutely nothing to do with this case, would it be just a big oops for them, and they have to make peace with the fact that, well, the law doesn't always work to one's favor?
No, the law has provisions for him to sue the state. But the question comes of, can he afford litigation? Can he afford to actually sue the state, litigate against the state for unlawful arrest? The law does protect him, Leon, as a citizen that was arrested unlawfully.
Yeah. And the case would have to be, I'm assuming the case would have to be something like negligence, right? Like that they didn't do, because if the police comes at the case and say, well, this guy did actually look like the one of the faces we had up there, but it's not him. That's not negligence, is it? Like, it's still a big oops, but that provision, I'm sure, goes to as far as to say, well, there are instances where there could be an unlawful arrest, but the police still did everything in their power. It just happens to be unfortunate in this case. I don't know how far does that law go to protect someone who was unlawfully arrested. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, you are making sense, but it would just be up for argument. It would just be up to how you argue your case. If you are arrested unlawfully, it would depend on the merits you are arrested for. Or okay, you looked like that person, then they're just arguing a point that you look like that. And then you'd have to argue that no, you didn't. So it's just the law now again. You are still arguing and proving your cases. You are both proving your cases. If you are alleging an unlawful arrest, you must prove why it was unlawful, and they must defend why it was lawful. So it's just really a legal squabble.
And then the same month, a couple of days later, the police minister, Begicela, announces that 5 suspects have been arrested in connection with the murder of Senzo Meyiwa. So this is basically now building up to what we have today as the case as it stands. And these guys then appeared in court, and it was postponed to March 2021. And a day later, something interesting happened. A day later, after Begicela announced the arrest of these 5 guys, a document was leaked to media by the NPA, which kind of put the Khumalo in front of the center of this murder, which is also another thing that's going on in there.
A criminal case starts with the cops, right? So the cops, well, of course, a crime first happens.
Yes.
And then the cops are responsible for the investigation of that crime.
Okay.
And what they need to investigate that crime is probable cause. So if they think you're a suspect, or they've got reasonable suspicion, right, that this guy is the one that we think committed this crime, then they do the investigative work. So they would investigate, sort of like build a case against the suspect who they think there's probable cause that they committed the crime. And then that sits with the SAPS. So the people responsible for what we would end up calling dockets would be the cops, who are now documenting the case in relation to how strong they think they can get it. Then once you have that docket, so to speak, the prosecution thereof, now when we have cases that we call S versus crime or S versus, right, those cases must now be taken, those dockets must now be taken to the NPA, who must now overlook what the cops have investigated, the detectives have put together, the evidence they've put together. And then the NPA, which has got provincial bodies in South Africa, like across all the provinces, there's a DPP. So I think the head now is Shamila Batohi, who's the head of the NPA, right? Yeah. But provincially, you would also have prosecuting authorities provincially. They get these dockets and then they say, yeah, we think this is a strong enough case to prosecute. What is prosecution? Prosecution is now going to court to say that that case or that crime that happened, we want to pin it on this suspect. And because we want to pin it on this suspect, the NPA must overlook the documents that the SAPS have put together, the evidence they've collected, and now take this to court. So the people who will go to court are what you will usually find termed as prosecutors. The prosecutor now sits there and now works on the case. So I mean, a good example in South Africa, a big case, is the Pistorius case. At the time, Gerinel was a prosecutor with the NPA. He got given the case. This is the case. Take it. He then goes to court with it. But what the NPA does is that they check the box of whether or not this is worthy of taking to court. So if you can maybe think of it differently, is that once they have that case, they can decide, okay, this is just a juvenile case. Let's just decide to put this person on parole, or not parole. Let's just decide to put this person on probation, or let's just decide to maybe limit the terms to 2 months fine and community service, that kind of stuff. So the prosecuting authority, the prosecutors, the ones who would then look at the weight of the case and decide whether this is worthy to go and be contested in court, is where the prosecution authority sits. So they look over all crimes. So the idea there is that not everything must go to court at the same time, but also it is to overlook the work that is done by the cops from a docket point of view. If they collected sufficient evidence for us to take this to court to prosecute the suspect. So they look across all crimes, all different kinds of things that is should go to court. Criminally, they would be very key on that kind of work. So
Meyiwa's family, there was that point where they went to AfriForum, right? For them to help out with the prosecution. I believe that's what they were doing, right? And that would be private prosecution, right? Because it's no longer now with the NPA. And so is that what you mean by saying you can choose? So you can say, I don't believe the state.
So you're not necessarily choosing, you have to apply for it. And then it will then be approved to then get yourself a private prosecutor. I don't know if ever there's anyone here who can just explain this better. Can you just step in, if ever you can? But basically, what happens is that the prosecutor represents the state in a particular case, and then you will have your own lawyer if ever you are the committer of crime. Then if ever you want the state's lawyer, then you will be represented by the legal aid. But on the other side, it will be the prosecutor to deal with that.
I think H covered it nicely by saying the NPA has the authority to reject or decline a case. I mean, to accept or reject a case. So where the NPA then rejects to take on a case, because the NPA can say it's not good enough, they're not going to take it on, or they are scared, like the example H used, to take on this case. Then that's where the private prosecution comes in, and then they use their own private body to take on that case. They use their own resources as opposed to the state's resources.
Okay.
So private prosecution should also be understood in two ways, right? So there's one where the NPA has said, we are declining to take this case to court. And then I, as the person, maybe I'm the spouse or I'm the child of the person who got murdered. Let's say it's a criminal case, for example. I then can say, okay, I want to pursue private prosecution, but I need a certificate from the NPA to say that, okay, we are not going to do this case. You can go ahead with it. That's what you need. That's when I'm an individual. But there's also what we would call private prosecution by statutory body. So this is someone like departments that want to pursue some criminal actions by themselves and not necessarily going through just the NPA, but they can hold it internally. So statutory body would be like either departments or something that is done by, let's say, the public protector, for example. They could then institute similar kind of actions, which would be termed private prosecution in inverted commas. But private prosecution by individuals, you can only do that when you get a certificate from the NPA saying, hi, we don't think this case should go to court. And then like GT said, the individual would now have to handle the costs themselves, get their own lawyer, gather their evidence as well.
Yeah, I think we need to start getting into the characters now because time is no longer on our side. But before but not necessarily before, but I think we can all mix them up nicely here. This issue of the second docket and the second docket, guys, can you explain that? I think this is the most confusing part. Is this normal, first and foremost? Is this something that would normally happen? And how is it handled? Like, what is this? How can you have two dockets?
So
I don't know. Can you start off there? I think this is where the juice of this case comes in now, where now things are getting confusing now.
Yeah. So the first docket, 636, was opened in 2014 when the incident happened. Then comes in the second docket, which was opened in 2019. Right? I stand to be corrected, but I think 2019, 2018, somewhere there.
Yeah,
that's when sure, that's when the second docket was opened. Now, the interesting thing is that the two dockets have different theories. 636 says people came into the house and took cell phones and shot Senzo Meyiwa. It was a robbery. That's 636.
This is the 2014 one.
2014 one.
Yeah.
And then 375 is no one came to the house. No one left the house. It was the same people where the shooting happened. So these are the suspects. Everyone who was at the house, they are the suspects for 375. So it's not an unusual thing, but it's not common. It's possible to happen because they both cases have different investigating officers. And at the time they said the docket was accepted by a junior prosecutor. So it has no standing. They said we can't take it serious. It was just accepted by a junior prosecutor. And it's coming
First
after.
one.
Yes. The second one, 375.
Oh, the second one.
Yes.
Yeah, the one that never got authorized or something.
Yeah, the one that was never signed. So
Yeah.
it can't be considered an indictment because it was never signed.
Okay.
So it has no merit on that basis. The fact that it wasn't indicted and signed and authorized that this thing should go for prosecution. Therefore, now it's neither here nor there. It has no merit. Merit that it has, which Advocate Mshololo was then halting the proceedings for, was that the witness that was on the stand, that's being cross-examined even till today, Mr. Musia, deposed 2 affidavits, meaning he deposed 1 affidavit for the first docket, 636, and then he deposed another affidavit for 375.
What do you mean by
So-
depose? What's the word? What does that word mean in English?
He basically wrote an affidavit.
Yeah, like what's depose?
He
That's like
deposed
affidavit
it.
more like thing, mara.
Mara, I don't go to the police like, guys, I need to depose an affidavit for my bursary. I never used that word in my life. I've never used the word depose in my life.
but so in this instance, it's for evidence, it's for court documents. So it's very particular in this line that you are deposing an affidavit, you are swearing that you are the undersigned and you are on oath. It's the same thing basically, but for this one, it was for evidence. It's because criminal procedures like puzzles, we use different puzzles to put together the whole picture and to get the entire crime scene. So Advocate Mshololo, defense for accused 5, is saying, hold on, now I didn't receive the second docket. I need to go through the second docket so that I can prepare my case in this cross-examination, because this guy wrote 2 different statements for the first docket and for the second docket, you see. So she now wants to piece it together to say, no, you say this in this affidavit, but you say something else in the first affidavit. But the
Can I put
docket
you in
itself.
just to ask a question?
Sure.
So I heard somewhere, and I don't know if that's what you also mean, that even though the second docket is not, even though it doesn't get pursued, for, I don't know what's the right word, it can still be used as evidence. It doesn't, not all is
Yes.
lost, not all is
Yes.
lost. So is that what you mean here, that she still, Advocate Mshololo wants to say, yes, this case, this docket is fine, no one is, but then I want to use it as a form of kind of an evidence for my case, for my client, so to speak. Yeah.
Sure, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is, I think it's labeled Exhibit C. Yes, Exhibit C in the case itself.
Yeah.
So it's an exhibit.
Yeah.
The docket itself is
Okay.
it's an evidence. So, which is very different to what Teffo is approaching it. Teffo is saying, no, this docket must be pursued. I want a trial within a trial. You know, so Advocate Mshololo understands the procedure and the mechanisms of bringing up still that, like you said, not all is lost. You know, you can still piece it in as evidence.
But then how strong does it become as evidence as opposed to what our favorite advocate Teffo is saying? Will it still, because I believe, I don't know, how do you guys, how do you, how can I put it, how do you guys weigh up evidence? Because I've been curious about this to say, there's this big frustration by everyone that Musiani's team did not do the good job, right, at gathering the evidence at the scene. And it feels like all we are left with now is witnesses.
Yeah.
And I would like to believe, my intuition would tell me that fingerprints that were taken by the investigating officer, blood samples and so forth would hold more water than basically people just coming saying their version of events, especially given that, man, in this case, this is how many years has it been, but like their memories, because I wanted to ask you guys later about, like, does the law even factor in things like that to say, it's been so many years, how much can we still trust the memory of those who are going to stand there and say, yes, I remember the day the person who walked in was wearing an Uzi hoodie, you know what I mean? I'm curious to know, so can you also, can you just talk me through the weight of the evidence, also linking it to the fact that advocating for wants this docket to be pursued as a case, as a trial on its own, versus what Advocate Mshololo says, it's like, you know what, this is not a useless document just because you're not pursuing it. We can still find a way to link it back in our case. Does it not somehow become less of a strong piece of document when it's just a piece of evidence rather than a case in itself, so to speak?
H, you want to take that one?
We were reverting to the legal expert on that, but the thing is, evidence needs to be corroborated. Evidence needs to be corroborated. That's a key factor of all kinds of evidence that's given, and corroboration means it must be backed up by something or someone or a couple of people who will then also say, oh, okay, that was said actually happened. That's how evidence gets weighed. So it's really about the strength of the corroboration or someone backing it up. So if we say that Njebe was in the crime scene, and the corroboration would be there's DNA of his in there that we found, or there's blood samples of his that we also found in there, or there's his hat, or the glasses that he wears, the shoes that he has that he's wearing on this picture. Now you're just corroborating that evidence. So how much? So if you can do it with over like different layers, like if you can layer the corroboration up to a very high level, then it becomes strong. So it doesn't matter from which docket it might come from. If it is evidence, the corroboration would be how we weigh. So even in this case, if 636 is saying that there was a shot from Longwe Twala, right?
Yeah.
Longwe Twala, right? If that's what it's saying, then corroboration would be getting the gun or getting the, what are those things? The capsules that come with a bullet. You can tell we are South Africans who are unarmed. What's that thing called? That thing that comes out when the bullet goes. Yes, that thing. So that's how you would be corroborating over it. So it's really a matter of corroboration. It's not so much about from which document it comes from. What's shocking for me is just how different the theories are in both dockets. And for me, what has been disappointing about this whole case is a crime that happened when people were there and were alive, like when it happened, shouldn't be, I don't think, this difficult to at least come to one solid idea of what happened. I'm not saying solving it, but like one solid idea of what happened. Like there's no way it should be this contrasting, man. It's contrasting to have 5 people who are accused and a mastermind, and have another one which says that it happened from within the house. That's like the on a spectrum, it's too polarized.
Yeah.
But the evidence will tell us the truth if it's not being hidden. But yeah.
Then another question I have, because I've been curious about this, like now, especially I got this sense when I was watching that Netflix documentary. It feels like if another version of many stories is the people in the house know what happened and just a mistake. Others say by Khumalo, and others say by Longwe, you know what I mean? But it sounds like there was some kind of a fight or a squabble, and a gun went off, and that's how Senzo got shot. And now it felt like people got together like, guys, we need to come up with a story to cover up this whole nonsense. And then affidavits would have been, what's the deported?
Deposed.
Deposed. Affidavits would have been deposed on the day, and people would be, obviously, if that was their coming together and coming up with a story, a conspiracy together to say, guys, we need to have this one story that we stick to. What does the law say about someone who now wants to come back and say, guys, I felt like I was being intimidated on the day. I have a true, like we see with Zandi Khumalo now. She sounds like she's this person. When she takes the stand, she's going to spill it all. We hear a lot of that, but it sounds. I don't think she ever said all of that initially. Will it not? Because there's this thing. What you guys, is it perjury when you lie under oath? Is that the right word? Would you not be, and they in a stuck between a rock and hard place in terms of, am I going to incriminate myself by saying I lied initially, now I'm ready to tell the truth, versus I'm just gonna stick to the original story at all costs because I don't want to incriminate myself for something else, because if not for murder or complicity in murder, then it's perjury. Like literally, you just have to stick to your story. What do the law say in that sense? Because I'm sure the law would want to encourage people to now tell the truth, right? But it sounds like the law is also standing on its own self. If it is a difficult thing to do, if now you said something in your original affidavit and now you can't change it, you have to stick to it, even though now you are ready to tell the truth. I don't know if GT, you wanna take that one on.
So you are asking what the law says when
Yeah. What are the
something.
options as a witness? So yeah. So let's take Zandi, for example. Let's take Zandi. Zandi, that's Zandi, Kelly's sister is Zandi, right?
Yeah.
Let's take Zandi.
Yeah.
She's now, let's say she's in a position to finally want to tell the truth. Is she protected by the law, or she'll get into trouble for telling the truth when she didn't initially?
Who is she telling this truth to?
Whenever, let's say she takes the stand eventually as part of the, let's say, the docket 2, let's take this hypothetical scenario. Advocate Michelle gets her way, she gets to use the second docket as part of the evidence, and obviously to corroborate that second docket, which implicates people in the house. Zandi gets called in as one of the people, and she's like, guys, I have to confess, I can't sleep at night. This thing is really, you know what I mean? So I'm finally ready to tell the truth. Meanwhile, her original affidavit doesn't it's not consistent with what she's going to tell the court on the day of her taking the stand as a witness. Does the bravery come in handy here? Will she get rewarded for being brave, or will she get into trouble for contradicting what she initially, let's say, wrote in her affidavit?
Yeah, I'm not sure what trouble she can get into, but affidavit, you're supposed to oath. You state that you oath to tell the truth, as well as court, you say you are under oath, you are telling the truth. So if she comes out and gives a different story from her affidavit, then okay, then we will take what saying as her truth, her new truth. Then we'll establish now that she's putting to us now the truth as opposed to what she put in her affidavit. So now we are just following the trail. So the court will then assess to be like, okay, this is a new version. It's common cause that the prosecutor and the defense agree that the affidavit was a lie. It's fine. I don't think she will get arrested.
So there won't be perjury, or isn't that where perjury comes in? When you lie.
I mean, also, the person can also say that, you know, under during those particular point in time, this is what made me say what I wanted to say. Yes, of course, if ever you lie under oath, that is it. You're going to be charged for your perjury and what. But if ever, then they come with that other statement, and then they come up with the reason to say that maybe, you know, they said what they said because, you know, we ever threatened them or said this or that this is how you should actually go on about, you know, putting on your statement, then you can be justified in that particular manner. So yeah, it really, you know, goes to that particular extent. And the person can always say that. You turn around the statement and then you pin it on whatever the situation that made you lie.
Sure. And then it also goes to
so you can lawyer your way around the statement and make it sound like you're not changing it. Is that what you're saying, GT?
Yeah, you're basically saying this is what made me say what I said earlier. I wasn't supposed to say it, but due to this particular circumstances, this is what made me say it. But here's the...
Because I was getting a sense that the people in that house were, if the story, one of the stories is true, they are just now scared to change the story they originally told. I was getting that sense. And I thought part of the reason might be getting into that kind of trouble. It sounds like it's not that hard to just say, never mind what I said in 2014, I've got a new story now.
Now, if they are capable of putting on the lie and keeping it for so many years, they are also capable of coming back and say, this is what actually happened.
Is this what they teach you guys in the school, guys? So they're teaching you guys, so this is the spinning now. You can spin the story.
You are under duress.
So you said the lawyer can sit them down and say, listen, Zandi, listen. What you said that day, we know you're not in good mind.
Yeah.
We know you're a bit drunk in and on vodka.
Mm-hmm.
This is how we're gonna turn it around.
Mm.
Yeah.
When you said this and that, you can tell the court that what you really actually meant was 1, 2, 3. GT, that's how you sound like. It sounds like, come on, bruh. What's so hard about just going to change what you said in your video? Is it like, because now I used to think it was like a big deal. I thought that was part of
it is a big deal.
The reason why they are so scared to come out now, because they already gave their statement initially on what happened on the day. Now they're like, yo.
No,
But it sounds like it's not so.
There's a lot of under any other, circumstance that you might find yourself in, you can say whatever that you want to say, right? So, and that does not necessarily mean that at that particular point in time when you're saying it, it is true event of what happened. So later on, when you decide to come back and change your mind and say, no, I want to tell the truth, you say that this is what made me say what I said earlier. So it might be because...
That's true in Mjolo, but I thought in law, when you say something under oath, they assume that, in Mjolo you can come back with a version of your own. But I thought when
I think Mjolo is perfect. I think Mjolo is perfect for you to sort of like understand it, right? How do you prove?
Yeah.
Because the issue with law is that you must prove. So
it.
even when we accuse you of perjury, right, we must prove that you lied under oath. But then if you present other facts that decide that, no, I was under duress, no, na ka robala le yena, ne re rubetsi. Last time kirile ne re rubetsi, aka robala le yena ne re rubetsi. Then you sort of like spun it around. You haven't really said. So and how do you prove that it didn't happen if there isn't like physical hard facts that this happened? So that spinning is part of the law, particularly because the legal regime is about proof and proving whatever
Yeah.
claims we make. And the proof is difficult. Trust me, it's difficult to prove. The same way in Mjolo, I've had guys found, you've heard this in movies, it's not what it looks like. Like the guy is found red-handed and his response is it's not what it looks like.
Shaggy. So and another thing on that note, another thing I'm curious about, and it's I don't know, it's just I don't know whether to call it a principle or what, but like guys, how do you prove innocence? Then another question I have, because I've been curious about this, like now, especially I got this sense when I was watching that Netflix documentary, it feels like if another version of many stories is the people in the house know what happened and just a mistake. Others say by Khumalo, and others say by Longwe, you know what I mean? But it sounds like there was some kind of a fight or a squabble and a gun went off, and that's how Senzo got shot. And now it felt like people got together like, guys, we need to come up with a story to cover up this whole nonsense. And then affidavits would have been, was the deported. Deposed. Affidavits would have been deposed on the day, and people would be, obviously, if that was their coming together and coming up with a story, a conspiracy together to say, guys, we need to have this one story that we stick to. What does the law say about someone who now wants to come back and say, guys, I felt like I was being intimidated on the day. I have a true, like we see with Zandi Khumalo now. She sounds like she's this person, when she takes the stand, she's going to spill it all. We hear a lot of that. But it sounds, I don't think she ever said all of that initially. Will it not, because there's this thing, what you guys, is it perjury when you lie under oath? Is that the right word? Would you not be, and they in a stuck between a rock and hard place in terms of, am I going to incriminate myself by saying I lied initially, now I'm ready to tell the truth, versus I'm just gonna stick to the original story at all costs because I don't want to incriminate myself for something else, because if not for murder or complicity in murder, then it's perjury. Like literally, you just have to stick to your story. What do the law say in that sense? Because I'm sure the law would want to encourage people to now tell the truth, right? But it sounds like the law is also standing on its own self. If it is a difficult thing to do, if now you said something in your original affidavit and now you can't change it, you have to stick to it, even though now you are ready to tell the truth. I don't know if GT, you want to take that one up.
So you are asking what the law says when
Yeah. What are the
something.
options as a witness? So yeah. So let's take Zandi, for example. Let's take Zandi. That's Zandi, Kelly's sister, Zandi, right?
Yeah.
Let's take Zandi.
Yeah.
She's now, let's say she's in a position to finally want to tell the truth. Is she protected by the law, or she'll get into trouble for telling the truth when she didn't initially?
Who is she telling this truth to?
Whenever, let's say she takes the stand eventually as part of the, let's say, the docket 2, let's take this hypothetical scenario. Advocate Michelle gets her way, she gets to use the second docket as part of the evidence, and obviously to corroborate that second docket, which implicates people in the house. That gets called in as one of the people, and she's like, guys, I have to confess, I can't sleep at night. This thing is really, you know what I mean? So I'm finally ready to tell the truth. Meanwhile, her original affidavit doesn't it's not consistent with what she's going to tell the court on the day of her taking the stand as a witness. Does the bravery come in handy here? Will she get rewarded for being brave, or will she get into trouble for contradicting what she initially, let's say, wrote in the affidavit?
Yeah, I'm not sure what trouble she can get into, but affidavit, you're supposed to oath. You state that you oath to tell the truth, as well as court, you say you are under oath, you are telling the truth. So if she comes out and gives a different story from her affidavit, then okay, then we will take what saying as her truth, her new truth. Then we'll establish now that she's putting to us now the truth as opposed to what she put in her affidavit. So now we are just following the trail. So the court will then assess to be like, okay, this is a new version. It's common cause that the prosecutor and the defense agree that the affidavit was a lie. It's fine. I don't think she will get arrested.
So there won't be perjury, or isn't that where perjury comes in? When you lie.
I mean, also, the person can also say that, you know, under during those particular point in time, this is what made me say what I wanted to say. Yes, of course, if ever you lie under oath, that is it. You're gonna be charged for your perjury or not. But if ever, then they come with that other statement, and then they come up with the reason to say that maybe, you know, they said what they said because, you know, we ever threatened them or said this or that this is how you should actually go on about, you know, putting on your statement, then you can be justified in that particular manner. So yeah, it really, you know, goes to that particular extent. And the person can always say that. You turn around the statement and then you pin it on whatever the situation that makes you lie.
Sure. And then it also goes to
so you can lawyer your way around the statement and make it sound like you're not changing it. Is that what you're saying, GT?
Yeah, you're basically saying this is what made me say what I said earlier. I wasn't supposed to say it, but due to this particular circumstances, this is what made me say it. But here's the
because I was getting a sense that the people in that house were, if the story, one of the stories is true, they are just now scared to change the story they originally told. I was getting that sense, and I thought part of the reason might be getting into that kind of trouble. It sounds like it's not that hard to just say, never mind what I said in 2014, I've got a new story now.
Now, if they are capable of putting on the lie and keeping it for so many years, they are also capable of coming back and say, this is what actually happened.
Is this what they teach you guys in law school, guys? So they're teaching you guys, so this is the spinning now. You can spin the story.
You are under duress.
So you said the lawyer can sit them down and say, listen, Zandi, listen. What you said that day, we know you're not in good mind.
Yeah.
We know you're a bit drunk and on vodka.
Mm-hmm.
This is how we're gonna turn it around. When you said this and that, you can tell the court that what you really actually meant was 1, 2, 3. GT, that's how you sound like. It sounds like, come on, bruh. What's so hard about just going to change what you said in your video? Like, because now I used to think it was like a big deal. I thought that was part of the reason why they are so scared to come out now, because they already gave their statement initially on what happened on the day. Now they're like, yo.
No,
but it sounds like it's not so hard.
There's a lot of under any other, circumstance that you might find yourself in, you can say whatever that you want to say, right? So, and that does not necessarily mean that at that particular point in time when you're saying it, it is true event of what happened. So later on, when you decide to come back and change your mind and say, no, I want to tell the truth, you say that this is what made me say what I said earlier. So it might be because...
That's true in Mjolo, but I thought in law, when you say something under oath, they assume that, in Mjolo you can come back with a version of your own. But I thought when
I think Mjolo is perfect. I think Mjolo is perfect for you to sort of like understand it, right? How do you prove?
Yeah.
Because the issue with law is that you must prove. So
it.
even when we accuse you of perjury, right, we must prove that you lied under oath. But then if you present other facts that decide that, no, I was under duress, no, na ka robala le yena, ne re rubetse. Last time ke rile ne re rubetse, a ka robala le yena ne. Then you sort of like spun it around. You haven't really said. So, and how do you prove that it didn't happen if there isn't like physical hard facts that this happened? So that spinning is part of the law, particularly because the legal regime is about proof and proving whatever claims we make. And the proof is difficult. Trust me, it's difficult to prove. The same way in Mjolo, I've had guys found, you've heard this in movies, it's not what it looks like. Like the guy is found red-handed and his response is it's not what it looks like.
Sabulala Meyiwa Samson Kheli Khumalo Hey sabulala me how Samson Kheli Khumalo Yebo sabulala me Samson Kheli Khumalo sabulala how Samson Kheli Khumalo
Yeah, so which brings us to that the character, the most infamous, controversial character of this whole case. So which version do you guys believe? Can you tell? Do you guys believe it's Kelly? Do you guys believe it's Longwe? Do you guys believe if it's Kelly, it's not her with her own hands, but she's the one who born these guys? Do you guys believe there was a threesome? Remember the version is so. Where's Zandi Kelly and Senzo having a threesome and Longo was annoyed, came in, that's another bit. Which version do you guys believe? What version do you guys think is the most likely true version of all these events we hear? So, like honestly speaking, when you're just sitting there and watching these things unfold, what do you guys think? Go first, Mchan. I think I probably trust your opinion more on this more than anyone else here.
But you won't get the answer you're looking for. Because I will only trust the version at the end of the case. I'll only be able to ascertain what happened.
Are you also doing a PhD or something? What's going on here? That's a PhD answer. You were just intuitively. Yes, of course, that's true. We'll let the law decide the cause.
But you can't expect me to have a theory, because what informs my theory?
Yes, okay, let me put my question like this. There are all these different versions, and you've kind of seen pieces of the evidence here and there, watching the proceedings. Which version is the most likely? Okay, I'm putting you now in the shoes of the judge now. Who, so far, if you were to make the decision as the judge to say, this is the version of events from what I can tell from what Advocate Mshola said, what Advocate Teffo has said, what the witnesses on the stand have said so far, what's your legal intuition telling you?
So far, there's only been one witness, and to go by that, I don't think.
No, you're not getting off the hook, Mchan. When you're sitting, you're not getting off the hook, Mchan. Yes, based on that one witness so far, based on the defendant's lawyers so far, based on the little bit of information you have outside the court, there are also some things we hear outside the court, right, that have not yet been presented, or that will never probably get presented. There are all these things happening outside the court itself that you are aware of, that I'm giving you now even the power to say you have to give me your assessment, can even use the evidence beyond the one. Kind of, what's the judge's name? What's his name? I want the name and I like the name of. What's his name, man?
Which one?
The judge, the what do you guys call my lord, man? That guy. Yes, I'm giving you the more power than him now, yeah. Whoever his name is, to say you can even use what you've heard from, let's say, Khumalo's reality show, what you've seen on Netflix, what you've read on Twitter. You can now, based on those piece of information? What's your intuition? What are you leaning towards here? Which version of the story are you leaning towards?
Disclaim that it's not a legal intuition or it's not legally informed.
Okay.
It's just humanly informed.
Yes, okay.
There's nothing to do.
I can take that.
Yeah, let's take that approach rather.
Chifiwa, by the way, Chifiwa, yeah, that's the name I was looking at.
Yeah. So from what I've observed so far,
yeah,
the way the first witness, the so-called forensic expert, how his evidence was basically rubbished by both counsels, by both of the defense advocates. His version of events sounds shady, which makes me think that it was organized, it was tampered with. That one, I think I can say from listening to him and from observing how he's tackling the questions, is that he was, advocate therefore say he was managed, because he was a junior at that time, he was a constable, and there was a higher official at the crime scene. So I agree with what they are putting to him, that he was managed to take certain evidence, to only capture this part of the house, to only capture these fingerprints. That much I can say. There was some management from the authorities, because the way in which the crime scene was approached was different to a normal crime scene. You know, I mean, this guy takes how long to get to the crime scene? 30, 45 minutes to get to the actual crime scene. He's going to the hospital, then he goes there. You can already see that they were already fabricating the story from when Sergeant Musia arrived. The story was already established. And he was told, this is what you're going to say, and this is how you're going to capture this evidence. So from that point, I agree that he was managed from that perspective.
So far, you think there's a conspiracy not just between the members of the house, it's the people who are in the house, but also the people in the house with someone in authority to say
yes.
Okay.
So I believe the incident happened, and then they called the authorities personally. Maybe
I think they started with Chicco Twala. I think Chicco Twala
probably organized
the
authority to come and handle the situation.
Yeah.
So maybe the question you are alluding to is which docket am I leaning more towards? Am I leaning more towards 375 or 636?
Yes.
Did people enter? So I was watching this Khumalo interview now, and she makes a comment that house is so small, you know, just being 5 people, you have no space. You know, she was basically emphasizing how small the place is. With 5 people, that it already feels like a full house, but it's a 3-bedroom house, 2 or 3-bedroom house, but she makes it seem small. And then it just occurred to me that now they are saying these 5 guys came inside that house where there were already 7 people. Now I can already imagine how full it must have been, this house, you know that.
So I think they say, if I correct me, because I think they said 2 entered, right?
2 entered.
Out of the five, I think 2. The version is 2 entered. I think the other 3, I don't know. The other one was living outside. The other one was in the car, something like that. But I think only 2 entered the house, as far as this story is concerned. But I think the point still stands. There were 5 people already in the house.
5 people in the house.
2 or 3 entered, yeah.
Sure, because they are saying in the house there were 7. There were 7 people
already,
already, and then let's say 2 more entered. It just feels like a full house. And why specifically one person would get killed? See, that's a hit, you know, if one person is getting killed out of all of this.
So, but then what if I was to play the devil's advocate here, they say, because if the version is it's a failed robbery, right? So if the intention was not to go there and just mass shoot people, they were trying to rob or something.
Yeah.
So shooting only one person out of the 7 is not a crazy thing to happen, because that's not they were not there to kill people. They were there to try and grab whatever they could find, and oh shit, they killed one person in the process.
And in that process, they don't even take whatever they can find.
No, that's why they say it's a failed robbery. It was an attempted robbery, which didn't. They took the phone. They took Kelly Khumalo's phone, by the way.
Yeah, they took Kelly Khumalo's phone, which is also another interesting aspect.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a phone, the specific phone that's been taken in this so-called failed robbery.
Normally, if you're going to do a robbery, if it fails, you go away with this one simple phone. Rather it's a failed robbery, right? You didn't get what you went there for.
And didn't they say they collected all the cell phones and then they put them in one place or something like that?
You mean with the police?
No.
During the robbery, the guys. Oh, I don't know that. I don't know that part.
So that they don't call the police or something.
Is it I'm not aware of that part of the story.
But as they run away, they quickly pick one phone, and it's Kelly Khumalo's cell phone.
And they run past Longwe Twala outside, because he was outside. I don't know what he was doing, smoking, and he's out there chilling while people are getting murdered inside the house.
And there's this X5 outside. The keys are there. They run away how? Like, do they have a getaway car?
Well, they said that's why it's 5 guys. I think the other 1 or 2 were in the car waiting for these ones who ran out of the house, something like that. Because that's how robberies, I think, happen. They wouldn't go there without a car. If the plan was to rob, you want to come out of there with a TV and with a laptop or something, you're gonna need a bit of transportation.
But what do you think they were there to rob?
Well, the house items, the normal the normal things that South African criminals always rob. The laptop, I don't know, whatever, the house items, the phones.
In a full house, like it's a full house. You are entering a full house to rob it.
If maybe that's why it failed, then because there were too many people in the house.
No, but that's not how South African criminals do it, though. South African criminals are late night guys. When it's quiet,
if they wanna rob,
if they're specific about the household items, they will enter not at 11, not at 10. This thing happened very much during the time we know people are not sleeping. The car was parked outside. There was noise. A lot was happening in that house. But the thing is, we can go. There's too many loopholes for us to discuss here. There's a lot going on, and I don't think we will come to like a pointed way. My interest, just to throw it in there, I'm interested in Maggie Phiri. That's my most fascinating person in this whole thing. The lady went in to clean. Like she cleaned the crime scene. I'm interested in her thought process because what did she think she was doing? Like, is she a cleaner of the house? Who told her to come clean? Because she doesn't live there.
Yeah, and she was not even in the house, I think
she wasn't even in the house, according to what the theories are saying of who was in the house when the robbers came in. Yeah. So I'm interested in her thinking, like, okay, what did you do to clean? Was it a bucket? What did you do with the blood? All that kind of stuff. Because
did she have music playing? You can't clean a house without music. You can't play music without R&B.
Was she playing Kelly Khumalo's song when she was cleaning? Was she playing Chicco Twala's music? Where was the thought process when she was doing this? Because there's a lot that in this case, and maybe to just jump in before you even ask me, is that I think the idea is to make it impossible to prove either theory. I think that's where they're driving towards. So you are just creating enough problems in terms of where this thing is going, such that it becomes, we can't prove either way, because you really have to prove beyond reasonable doubt. And that burden of proof is very high because we are already doubting all kinds of theories here. Like everything is doubtable. Like there's too much doubtable, whether it's 636 or 375, there's too much cloud around whether it happened or not. So I think the idea must have been to try drive towards
To
just
frustrate
enough
the person.
chaos. Yeah, just
Yeah.
frustrate the crowd to a point where it's difficult to prove beyond reasonable doubt. But if I had to put my head on the chopping block, I'm not a legal expert, so I've got nothing to lose here. I'd, I'd definitely jump in, and I think it happened inside the house. I don't think the robbery failed. My thing is, these 5 guys are supposed hitmen, nkabis, as it were. They don't
Yes.
seem like guys who fail at robberies, right? If they are these serious guys,
Hitmen,
especially if
yeah.
also the idea is that they came out of prison, they were taken out of prison to come and do this job specifically. I don't think they are guys who fail. Like, I think these are guys who they should be respected in their mafia ways, right? They shouldn't be disrespected like that. Don't disrespect hitmen like that. You can't just tell them they failed at robbing. Like, I mean,
let's give hitmen their flowers.
Let's give them their
flowers. Let's say who you think pulled the trigger, because that was going to be my also like follow up. Who do you think pulled the trigger then? So your theory now is leaning towards people in the house. So now we have 7 to choose from.
Yeah. So, Teffo confused me. I first thought it was Longwe who pulled the trigger. After watching the Netflix documentary,
Yeah, same.
I thought it would be Longwe, but then Teffo says something interesting and says it was Kelly Khumalo.
But with Longwe's gun, I think not a,
With Longwe's gun.
With Longwe's
Yeah, I
gun,
think Longwe's gun is implicated there somehow. I believe his instrument was used.
So, but do you think this was a mistake, like a genuine mistake when they were fighting and something went wrong, or you think it was a deliberate, like, I'm trying to kill you now kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it was deliberate.
Why do you think so? Why do you think that's deliberate? Based on like when you look at what, because my intuition, because I move between these 2 versions of the story, Longwe or Kelly. But when I go to Kelly, my intuition is always, I think those fighting that went wrong and something happened and just the gun went off by mistake somewhere along the way. Or if not a classic mistake, but a heat of the moment, I was too angry, kind of shooting rather than
Crime of passion.
today I had planned to murder, Senzo, like a premeditated, so to speak. I don't think that's premeditated. I want to hear your theory of why you think it was deliberate.
It was deliberate. Because there seems to be a love affair going on between, is it the sister, Zandi, and Senzo's friend, Tumelo. I think
Yes.
Senzo is trying to hook up Tumelo with Zandi.
Mm.
And Zandi is actually Longwe's girlfriend.
Yes.
So I think he knew that they are there at the house.
No,
Because-
wait, are you explaining that if it's Longwe who pulled the trigger version now, or if it's Kelly?
If it's Longwe.
Or if it's Longwe, yes. Okay, the Longwe one, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
you believe in the threesomes version, you believe in the threesome story, this sounds like
Is it a threesome?
you haven't heard Nota's docket.
Or
About
not as a docket also?
Nota is a docket, Mchana, where it's a threesome between Zandi. Like Nota, you know what I like about Nota's story? He didn't care that there were other people in the house. These people are having a threesome. Ne? While there was Jelly's like this threesome in that small house. He said this house was small, Mchana. Zandi, Jelly, and Senzo Meyiwa were having a threesome, Mchana. In the presence of Kelly Khumalo's mother.
And the kids. That
So
were-
so imagine what Maggie had to clean up with Nota's version. Imagine what make the shit and the nonsense that poor Maggie had to come and clean up. Because the threesome clean up, I'm sure it's not a very clean setup there. So that's what I like about Nota's story. It just disregards everyone else in their house and just zoom us into these three characters. Yeah, I'm just, I think, I don't know, niggas, I'm worried about time now. Also, we haven't spoken about advocate from things. Age, can I hear your version? So, Age, can you have your version? GT, can you have your version? And we can I still a few of your minutes and we can just talk about the advocate himself, the one and only.
Sure.
Ish, can I hear your okay, you've already explained what you think the motive you have, what they're trying to do here, and I think I agree with him. And I've been getting that sense to say they know how the law works. It's not a must that someone must get charged. The process can go on, and the procedure, what do you guys call the Criminal Procedure Act can get what's the word? It can be not followed properly, and people can get off like that, just like that. So there can be an instance where no one gets arrested because the process, the due process has just not followed. So at H10, what do you think actually happened?
Hey, let me start with Nota, man. I think Nota meant like the threesome had happened before. I mean, Nota was a comrade at 4 years old. I don't think he would.
Oh, yeah. Junior.
That
You
was,
don't notice our South African
he was a baby
Kanye West
genius.
guys. I think it's our South
He
African
was a
Kanye
baby
West.
genius.
Can you give that man his flowers while he's still alive?
So maybe he meant it in a higher level than we can make sense of. I think that's the reason.
Yeah.
Maybe. But I think that's what they're driving towards, just like confusing the whole system. And I said that I think it happened in the house. I also think it is accidental.
Yeah.
Because the motive to cover up would be around trying to not get in trouble. You get what I'm saying? Because of who you have killed by accident. So you try as much as possible to cover it up. I mean, there are other theories that the wife could have wanted to kill him as well because of the affair. Kelly herself could have wanted to kill him as well but that one I doubt, because I mean, why would I see people are evil, but just kill the father of your child in front of the grandmother is a bit weird.
And they were in good terms. And they were in good terms. They even came from a concert that day with Kelly.
So I don't think that's it. So I think it was accidental. The
And
gun.
you think it was Kelly? So you're saying
No. I think it was Longwe.
Okay.
In the midst of a fight. That's definitely where I'm leaning towards. And it was his gun. His story is the one that confuses me. The idea that he ran out, sort of like wanted to place him outside of the scene very quickly. And there's been a clip that has made rounds on social media about whether or not he had his phone when he ran out, or whether he left his phone in the house. So there's a part where he says his phone was in the house. And the other thing is the township suggests that you can scream when there's a problem. And he says he ran out, but he couldn't because people were sleeping there. But Maggie was awake to come and clean after. Like, so it's there. So I think they were trying to place Longwe outside the actual thing when it happened, and they are making things. So hey, I don't know. These are all speculations, and I think we must be very serious about that. We are speculating, right? And we're speculating on what is public. But if I had to speculate, I'd put my money on that. It's a weird thing. Also, I think they said Kelly called a couple of people as soon as it happened, and one of them was Chicco Twala. That's for me, that's a weird thing to do. Yes, he's a record label manager, but you don't sit there and think about your record label. I don't even think he's the record label manager, to be fair.
I think he's the producer, He's just the producer for her,
Yeah, so it's not the guy you think about when you are down and out. That shouldn't be, well, even if it is, that shouldn't be the second call you make, right? And at the same time, I think, I don't know if I'm right, but the Netflix series suggested that was the call that was made, but I thought the phone was stolen. So there's just a bit of a question mark around how everything played out there, but I'm convinced it was a mistake. When you do a mistake, you are more likely to see the incentive of covering up than if you did it on purpose, I think. So this is my thinking around, you've got a legitimacy morally, you think, because you think that the truth will be difficult to make sense of. So you sort of like cover up your mistake. But if you did a crime almost like premeditated, right? to cover it up is much harder. And I think we saw it with the Pistorius case, how he came out of bed. It was difficult for him to pin it together as a sign of an intruder. I mean, using the intruder example again, right? And shooting from the toilet and all that. It was difficult to cover. But I think when you did something by mistake, it's the incentive to do it morally is higher. And I think that's what they've come to do. But let's see how it plays out.
Yeah.
My sense is that it won't go far though. But
yeah, same. Before we go to detail, okay, so now we're moving between Long and Kin. But now, what do you guys think of because now the public sentiment, by public sentiment I mean Black Tweet, is that there's this frustration or this annoyance with Kelly that she doesn't seem to be, because if what we are speculating that this was a genuine mistake, either by her or by Longwe, she would be so broken by the fact that someone actually died at the end of the day. She seems to be on this defense, leave me alone, it's not me kind of attitude, rather than the like, I'm so sad he's gone and I can't believe I fucking did that, it's a mistake, or Longwe did that. Like this, like you say, it's difficult to reconcile if it's a mistake with reality itself. But there's still this sad part if genuinely, honestly, you are sad that someone you love passed away and was murdered that brutally, and especially if it was a mistake. There's this thing that would keep coming up that would still notice her breaking that she never, but she's this, like, I don't give a fuck person. The other day she even said Senzo was unknown before he dated her. You know what I mean? It's like there's this sense of arrogance about her, like, I'm so annoyed that you guys keep saying it's me, leave me alone, rather than just being like sad by what happened, even though she might know the truth, might be hiding the truth, but knowing that the plan was not for him to get murdered.
Well, it would, for me, my response would be, again, I mean, we're speaking legally, or we're speaking about the law today. So it's about proving. If I had to just like prove why I still think she's still arrogant despite it being a mistake, it would be her origin story, right? Like who she is, how she grows up, her relationship with the mother. For example, it's weird for me that someone dies in my house as the mother and I don't insist on going to see the parents of the people or try to make amends or go and send whatever I'm sending. So I just think inside that household is a weird kind of attitude towards life, I'd say, because the mother should be thinking, this is my grandchild's father who died. So there's like family links that I should be trying to make. But the fact that the mother, Kelly's mother, doesn't do even that or insist on that, for me suggests that the origins of her life in terms of maybe growing up suggests that at a moment even like that, the Ubuntu will fail. I'm just assuming. But that's me trying to make sense of it. But I agree, it doesn't make sense if it was a mistake to not at least break down, to play into the mistake or to play into the version of events. But I think her origin story suggests that she will be an arrogant somebody, given that the mother is also operating in this manner. Also, if you take the fact that this threesome was happening in her presence, it could have given notice. But even if it wasn't, hey man, I know old people who still struggle to drink in front of their parents, but it seems like it was a party in there. And whatever. But also, and I mean, that's, I don't want to make speculations about townships and the outputs that it can have.
The Gauteng townships in particular, I think the Gauteng townships in particular,
Sure. Hey, now I'm from suburbia. I can't make such claims because I will get I will get shot down. But it's like, it's for me, it's that line of thinking, like exactly what you're saying. For sure, Maggie was also cleaning up white things, I imagine. Lines of coke. That's a speculation I have.
That's also possible, yeah.
So I think, with that said, I think it makes sense why she would still be as she was, because the sister wasn't any better, to be fair, in her interview. So
even her personality still has this bitchy thing about
like
it.
it's like no one died, man. Like the way they're operating is like no one died, and I'm just maybe throwing it into maybe give lots of higher man. Maybe what to think like this because I it's difficult to reconcile. But I understand it doesn't make sense. But if I had to pin it on something, I'd go that way.
Kitty?
Yeah, wow. Interesting what you guys are saying here, man. But I think my question is, how powerful is Chicco Twala?
Yeah, that's a big question.
Yeah.
I think he might be quite powerful than you think, yeah.
So if ever, maybe then that's the case. Because you guys are saying the first person that was called in that house was Chicco, in actual fact. By a lot of people are saying that Chicco was being called by Kelly Khumalo.
Yeah.
What would Kelly Khumalo be calling Chicco Twala for, if ever? Maybe this is the father of his child that just died. He's supposed to be calling people in KZN or whatever.
Mm.
But she's deciding to call Chicco because, you know, maybe out of how can I put it? She's not in a good state of mind. She's scared of what just happened, or you know. But because it might possibly be involving Chico's son, then he has to know that this is what has actually happened. So if then that's the case, then Chicco would then come up with an idea of how we're going to deal with the situation. What has happened in the house, obviously, then it's something totally different to what I'm talking about right now, because I would imagine if ever there are like 5 people, this wasn't a planned thing. Kelly and Senzo were going maybe to the house to do whatever that they were going to do there, and there was a different, plan altogether. But because of maybe what they normally do when they link up at that house, which might be a different activity that we might even be, knowing that particular information of what they get up to when they go there. Because I mean, why would they go if ever it's intended? Why would Kelly go to his mother's house to kill somebody there, while they have their own house wherever that they live? And Abolong when I was Andy, so it was a whole event where if ever somebody says they were lining whatever that they normally line, and then they
the grandpa.
Yeah. So then
Yeah.
they end up doing, crazy things, and then, out of grudges or out of whatever that might have happened between Logo and Senzo, then it end up being their situation. Kelly might have decided, because there was a vision of Kelly trying to, help Senzo from being shot, standing in front, so that he then decided, no, rather me than you.
Yeah.
So then that happened. So I think
so to make sure, so now you are eliminating the aspect of premeditation. So you are saying
no, it's not.
It doesn't sound like something was planned in advance. Yes, which I think is fair.
I honestly don't think it was planned in advance, and I think it also caught Kelly by surprise as well. I don't think she also knew. But look, this is just speculations. I honestly, I even never wanted to give my whole opinion about what might have happened in that particular house, because I just feel like, nobody knows. And
Tana, you are doing your PhD, so we understand.
Well, that's very much up.
You are doing your PhD, you understand that you can't. Yeah.
The last word of this podcast should be allegedly. That's the last word we should say.
These are literally just all allegations, guys. I don't want to one day being appointed as so and so, and then all of a sudden there's a fucking thing that's coming up. That I was waiting.
I'll put a disclaimer. I'll put a disclaimer at the beginning of the intro, guys. I don't know how to phrase it legally. You guys will send me messages. I'll phrase something. Yeah.
Because you know how crazy these things are. You're recording this. You're saying all of these things, and then you're caught by surprise, man. When a video
they played the interview. No, I get it. Now I'll put a disclaimer, gents. I'll put a disclaimer at the beginning. I don't know what kind,
so it's just,
which will really try to help and
Yeah, in all honesty, it's not a true vision, or like it's not how I'm thinking of this entire thing. It's just, as having a communication and thinking for the streets. This is how we went on about tackling this entire thing. But yeah, I think my question just obviously is, how powerful is this man? If ever you guys are really saying that, they tried, to hide whoever the real killer of Senzo Meyiwa is, because for how long are you going to then, protect this person? And if ever that's, the father of this guy who actually did, who might have did it, then that it's insane. I honestly don't think he's that powerful.
Yeah, and what do you think, Chana, speaking of what do you think of that weird thing he did some other time with the gun? What's the story there? He pointed a gun, he got arrested briefly.
It was a different incident, right?
Yeah. This is like very recent. This is like like I think before the case started this year.
Yeah, I think.
You think that was part of the plot?
Honest, I think I tend to agree with H with what he says about the type of upbringing people do have. It goes to show about these people's parents. I mean, there is Chicco and there is Kelly's mother on the other side. Give us more Josie and doing whatsoever that they're doing,
and longer, it looks like those, those spoiled kids, bullshit kind of kids.
Yeah. So on the fourth or fifth hand, you might just believe what Nota is saying, that this. But it's nonsensical in any case. So yeah.
And because I know I'm really like stealing a lot of your time here, but Advocate Teffo, can you talk about the man himself? What do you guys think of that man? Oh, by the way, what's the latest with him? I heard that he pulled off the case, and then I saw an interview somewhere saying he must confuse the enemy. So I think he was not really. What's going on? What do you guys think? What does this do to the reputation of your profession, niggas? What do you guys think of that man?
I think if I can just quickly go first, I think he doesn't take himself serious, and he doesn't have the respect, and I don't know if ever he thinks before he says something, or he just goes and spew whatever that he feels like he wants to say, because he says a lot of shocking things as if he's not even in the public platform where he's going to talk about.
You could so he talks as if Fat Joe and it would sound the same.
Yeah.
They say you could put Fat Joe there and it would still sound like him.
You know what I mean?
It's just like a shock jock of the advocate.
I think Fat Joe is an entertainer.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's exactly my point. Like, but do you think maybe that the fame and the attention he was getting was starting to get into his head? Was this bad initially?
I think it shocked him as well.
So you think he got into his head?
He was starting to sign for the autographs.
Yeah, I want to hear your views on advocate from that. I really want to hear your views.
No, the person to ask is this man. He introduced me to him as a credible source. As we were going, I'm like, hey, look at your friend. What's happening?
Can I say something before? Okay, so can I say something? I was thinking about this, Monty. Say, there's this. I don't know what to call this movement. I'll make it. It's an equivalent movement to, initially people will say people are not beautiful, like especially ladies, because they are light skinned, right? And the movement started coming in. No, dark skinned girls can also be beautiful, and now every dark skinned girl is classified as beautiful. So there's this movement parallel to this one of people who sound snobbish or who have twanging English. They thought they were smart. And now there's a movement to say, Chana, English is not a measurement of your intelligence. So now there's a movement, everyone who has broken English is smart, or who speaks in a particular Julius Malema manner, or like me, is smart. I saw a meme, the reason I said that, I saw a meme that encapsulates this sense I'm getting. Someone said, you know, Advocate Teffo is that guy in the township that no one takes serious, but he's always telling the truth. I'm like, why? Because it sounds like, because it doesn't have plain English, now he's this genius. But just because it doesn't sound with that red carpet under your knees, under your feet, can you go in depth?
I appreciate the red carpet. No,
Yeah.
is right. Initially, he was onto something. Because he raised the issue of the second docket.
Sure.
You know, but the way in which he raised it annoyed the judge. He didn't raise it in a procedural manner that he's expected to raise it, you know, by the same way Mshololo raises it, like, no, can this thing be shown? Can I get the documents? Yeah, now he raises it in a sort of obscure manner to be like, hey, Mona, there's a second docket here that must be addressed. And from that legal perspective, I was like, no, this guy is correct. How can there be two dockets in this case? Vele, there's something wrong. And the way the judge also responded to him, it was in the sort of, he was rude, you know, as if he's talking down to this gentleman. Because you also see the reaction that the judge would have when Advocate Teffo speaks. The judge would sort of be annoyed to how Teffo is addressing him. Though an example, this other time, Teffo started, said, good morning, your lordship. And then the judge is like, no, it's your lordship. And then Teffo is like, no, but I said your lordship. And then the judge is like, no, you said your worship.
Yeah.
It's your lordship, not your worship.
Yeah.
And then, you know, things like that, you know, already there was an attitude towards him, which I think it's informed by the fact that he didn't do pupillage. He's a sidebar advocate.
Oh, that I was about to actually ask.
What does that mean?
At which bar is he at? Actually, this guy.
Yeah.
Oh, so he's a sidebar guy.
He's a sidebar guy.
Before you start getting too excited, what does that mean? What does that mean? So that we can all laugh together. What does that mean?
It means that he finished the LLB, but he didn't attend the 1 year pupillage that the advocates attend.
Did you do this at the court or is this at the bar? I've heard something about the bar or something. Where do people do their pupillage?
Yes, at the bar, whichever bar you choose to be part of.
Choose to go part of.
Oh, okay. So you're saying him, what's different with him? What did he do instead?
He did not do it. So he did not, complete his pupillage, which is, now makes sense as to why he's this type of an advocate.
Yeah.
So, but then are you still allowed to be an advocate even though you didn't?
Yeah. So the previous legislation was allowing you to. Who's a fan of a sidebar?
Wait, so a sidebar is a non-existent bar?
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a...
No, it's not a non-existent bar. It exists. There are rules. It is actually designed for people who want to practice, have got the LLB, want to be able to represent people, but haven't gone through the way that you would get briefs. So the way you would get a brief would be when you are part of that bar, that national bar, Joburg bar, Senton bar, whatever bar you are a part of, you can get briefs from within the bar. But for you to be able to join that bar, you must do pupillage inside that bar. What you do inside that bar is that they will teach you, your superiors or your supervisors will give you the lessons. But sidebar, you would have to still fulfill a certain bit of criteria, which is not pupillage, but a few sets of criteria, sort of like do the work that you need to do so that you can be able to represent people in court. Remember,
there's
there is.
No, let me let me finish my statement and you complete it because this is just how it is. You literally have your LLB, you complete it, and then after that you go and get admitted as an advocate, right? That's just a whole application altogether. You take it there and then they admit you, you're an advocate, you're done, right? With the previous legislation, especially it applies to us who graduated prior to the new one that came in I think it was in 2018 or 2019. So then now, after completing that, you get admitted and you become an advocate fully. Then you can either go and do your pupillage and whatsoever. But and then even if you decide not to go do pupillage, you can still go out and practice just by you completing, just by you going for your admission with your LLB alone. That's where the whole sidebar situation is. Then there's your National Bar Councils of South Africa, and then there's your your Joburg bars, your Limpopo bars, and every other bars, K bars and whatnot. So this one's then that's where you come and do your pupillage within a year. But the sidebar, it's literally a non-existent bar. You go and you get admitted, and then you continue to practice. But it's different now with the guys that graduated after 2018. They're saying those ones who have graduated after 2018, they cannot, get admitted as advocates before they complete their community service and completing their pupillage.
So basically the new law just did away with sidebar.
Yeah, so basically the new law now decided to do away with the whole sidebar situation. So now
but it exists though, in the sense that Teffo's not breaking rules. It's something you can do.
He's not breaking rules. We agree that he's not breaking rules.
Yes.
But you're not subscribing to any bar called sidebar. Sidebar, we're just using it as a technical term.
Yes, that's what I meant when I said.
Yeah, to talk about people.
So you are self-teaching, or is that?
Yeah, you're self-teaching.
Yes.
You're basically getting the materials. You can send you the materials, and then you continue to practice as
So you wouldn't. So how I understand with the bars, you have like a mentor and stuff to.
Yeah.
So it changed after 2018.
Yeah, it changed after 2018. After 2018, everybody has to go through that process of getting of doing pupillage. So, but if you graduated prior to that, then you can still then be admitted and do your pupillage if ever you want.
So my statement stands. I'm still a fan of the bar. I graduated before 2018. Well, yeah, before 2018.
Yeah, but
I'm still a fan of the bar.
But
it's not nonsensical. It's self-teaching, I believe.
Yeah.
It provides. So here's the thing: with pupillage in that 1 year, you can't even get paid in that 1 year.
Yeah.
So I think if you can self-teach, get the rules in order, right? Because you must remember the principle we started with at the beginning, is that what I said erroneously is that lawyers are useless. But what I meant is that you can represent yourself in court. If people can be given the opportunity to go and make representations themselves and have got degrees and don't need to live in this 1 year where they can't even get paid or make money otherwise, and there's an opportunity for them to still be able to teach themselves into a point of knowledge where they can come into a court and represent, I think that's a good thing.
But
it opens up justice across the board for you to be able to represent with some learnings.
No,
you need more
your problem is that now
we do.
Yeah.
We need more advocate.
We need more advocate for.
No, you don't need more advocate for. You can't be a fan of a sidebar, man. It's just nonsense. And the thing is, my man, you need to work progressively. Sidebar advocate, I don't think they are progressive in what they do. Few years they're able to do it proper, but in actual fact, if ever we are being honest, they are not making as much fortune as the other guys on the bars are able to do. And just using that 1 year to complete the program and making sure that at least you have studied the procedures and everything, you're able to then go in and be at least an advocate that's going to be respected.
But you know better than us the difficulty of getting the right supervisor or getting into a bar to get your pupillage done in the first place, right? So if that is so difficult, why can't I use my own ingenuity, hard work to learn exactly what you are learning in there and become better over time? But the idea that people should be enabled an opportunity to present themselves in court and represent themselves, I think is a good thing. The idea of fortunes, GT, I think is neither here nor there. Who cares how much money I'm making? But if I can get an opportunity, I don't want to go into pupillage, but I am interested in the idea of representing myself and representing others, those who are near me in court, it's a good thing. For
Yeah,
all
if
of Teffo's
ever.
fault, for example, right? The idea that he's managed to bring us to this point of opening up the cases of 636 is probably a function that he was just learning and was opening this and that, which is a good thing, I think. I don't think it should be totally disregarded.
I-
Okay, well, of course, it's not in the rules anymore. But GT, thanks for letting me know. I was under the impression that it's still running, but I think it's
But don't you
in
think
its
that's part of the
existence, it was a
reason
good
why?
thing.
Don't you think that's part of the reason why it was done away with? The way it's trying to get a sense of the sloppiness of some people.
It was
who
just
are,
not
yeah.
progressive. People were not following the rules. It didn't make
What does
sense.
what does that mean then for me if I want to represent myself in court, for example?
No,
I
you
wouldn't
can,
know the rules.
because I think that the whole idea of you becoming an advocate is that you want to then practice as an advocate. You want to be representing whoever, individuals, companies, or whatever that the case may be. I don't
Maybe
about anybody.
I think what H is asking is if someone can be given the power to represent themselves.
Yeah, they do have that.
How would they even know the rules to begin with? If a person who at least has got an LLB cannot be expected to know the rules. I don't know if I'm capturing your question correctly, H.
I'm
not sure because I don't understand what you're asking, and I didn't hear H. But
no, what I'm saying is that the idea of me being able to represent myself in court, if I am the accused, for example, right, that's very important.
Sure.
It even supersedes right of appearance. I can go there if I am the accused and say, hey, now I want to do this. I think that's an opportunity that all of us should have.
Sure.
And if I can do it with the LLB and get an opportunity to be part of the advocates world through this back door, as it were, I don't think that should be a problem. Because I think there are benefits to it, right? The idea of, I mean, I don't want to use the term elitist, but I don't think it's good to just close these things out because the law is so important for justice as far as I'm concerned. And if you can open it up for people to learn and go and represent themselves as terribly as Judge Teffo has done, I think that should be an open field. It shouldn't be this closed thing like the farmer's market where you can't dance at the farmer's market. You can't dance because people want to go there and drink cheese and wine. Come on. We must be allowed. But yeah, maybe there are rules and regulations. Maybe that's why they did away with it because too many advocate Teffos were coming out of the cracks. But yeah, maybe it's a quality assurance measure and you can't blame them for that. But I was a fan of it in the sense that you could get an opportunity if you've got the law degree to step into the field and engage professionals from self-learning, which I don't think should be the problem, right? Maybe you could regulate how well the people know by giving them an exam at some point or something, but I don't think it was totally a wrong thing. But how did we end up on the sidebar? I think we were somewhere else.
Because told us that
that advocate is the sidebar guy.
Yeah.
And then it made sense. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
So you wanted to say something?
Do you want to finish that point, maybe?
Yeah. To wrap up my answer as to why I trusted him, because he was also investigating the case itself. He was a former police officer. I thought he had a lot of intel on what actually happened. So I trusted him on that basis that he might have had inside information on the two different dockets and what actually happened. But along the line, he disappointed me. Like,
what point did you start to shake your head? It's like
now when he starts trying to be funny in court, you know, when he makes those sort of idioms or what are they, you know, just to sound like Steve Compella in court, then it's like but come on, my guy. Now you are losing it. Now you are making fun of the court, you know, cracking jokes. My friends are not Leonard, things like that. So it's like, at what point are we supposed to take you seriously?
Fucked up situation.
Yeah, fucked up situation. I mean,
no, I hear you, gentlemen. I think that's not a bad place to wrap it up. I think it was It was a very productive episode. Thanks.
No. Something is wrong. We haven't asked you what's your theory on the case. You need to tell us in 2 minutes. No, we haven't heard you. We need an
In 1
explicit
minute,
design. In 1
explain,
minute, you need to
in
wrap
1
it
minute.
up. Tell
So I don't
us.
have a fixed one. Like I said, I keep moving between Longwe and Kelly. But the storyline being more or less similar, the fight and the mistake, like you guys said, like I think I'm leaning towards that story. So I'm not 100%. I keep, like I said, I'm not 100% sure. Well, none of us are, but I don't know where I'll put my bet my money on between Longwe and Kelly. But I think, like you guys said, I think there was a party, things were going crazy, a fight broke up, and by mistake, a gun went off. And I also agree with you, H, a lot. I've been thinking a lot about this, that this was set up such that they just need to frustrate the process such that at the end of the day, no one is arrested necessarily, because they know the actual people who need to be arrested cannot be arrested. They don't want them to get arrested. But then also they don't want this guy to get arrested for something they didn't do, because they know that this guy didn't do anything. So I think there's allegedly or speculatively speaking, that's where I'm leaning. Yeah. So yeah, I think you guys have touched on bits and pieces of what I already think. Yeah. I think that's what's up. Yeah, I think that's what's going on. The one of Kelly hiring them to come in, that one, there was a time when I kind of thought about it, but nah, I don't think the web people, those guys came to the house. Those guys didn't even look like they know each other, bro. So that's why those guys